How's it going, everyone? Welcome back. Bengals Chiefs AFC Championship game part 2. Bengals winners of the last 3 matchups between these two teams, all decided within one possession. All of them very good football games that could have went either way. Nonetheless, though, Joe Burrow and company have found a way to slow down Patrick Mahomes and take down Patrick Mahomes 3 consecutive times. They're going to go into Arrowhead Stadium once again. This time, the Bengals coming in off of what is arguably, not even arguably, their most dominating team performance we have seen this season. Going up against what everybody was assuming was a Buffalo Bills versus Kansas. Well, not everyone, but the 50,000 people that might have reserved their tickets ahead of time. Everyone was assuming it was a Buffalo Bills versus Kansas City Chiefs championship game. The Bengals went in and dominated the Buffalo Bills, a team that's going to walk into Kansas City as confident as ever and still playing with a little bit of a chip on their shoulder, a dangerous team to be playing. Kansas City, on the other hand, not a easy matchup by any stretch of the imagination. Kansas City has not lost a football game since, well, the last time they played the Bengals, if we are being quite frank about things. They lost 3 games this season. They played it really well this season. Had a couple close games, proving, that they can be beat. But we've seen that with a lot of teams. It's just the Bengals being one of those teams, proving they can be beat. Some close games against some not so great teams. But that's the beauty of the NFL these days. Things change, though, in the playoffs when you see these teams start to really come to the top when it comes to guys that really, or players that really have it, like Patrick Mahomes or Joe Burrow. And that's what we're seeing for the second straight year. These two teams are going to face off against each other in the conference championship game. If you're the Kansas City Chiefs, I think you want to see Chris Jones really get home in this game. It's a Bengals offensive line that's been beaten and battered. 3 injured players. Karras played through an injury last week, says he's going to play through it again this week. You talk about a leader on that offensive line for the Bengals. But nonetheless, lots of question marks. There's still a chance that you can really hit the mojo, hit the confidence in this offensive line. Last week, it didn't happen. Buffalo struggled to get to the quarterback, as they've struggled to do ever since they lost Von Miller earlier this season. But I think it's a different story for Kansas City when you got a guy like Chris Jones, 15.5 sacks. Guy's been an absolute stud for this team for years. In the middle of that middle of that defensive line, trying to make some noise and trying to knock down Joe Burrow. We'll see. But there's no question about it. You got to see some pressure on Joe Burrow in this football game with the Kansas City Chiefs. You obviously ain't going to blitz him. They've seen in the past that won't work. You've got to get home with your front 4. And then there is the offensive side of the ball for Kansas City. And Travis Kelce, man. The guy's an absolute stud. There's no other way to put it. He's gotten 7 straight games in playoffs of 95-plus receiving yards. It's been ridiculous. The guy had 17 targets, 14 receptions again last week. And you see it feels like this guy gets utilized more and more and more, which is somehow possible. Because the guy's been the best tight end, shoe-in Hall of Famer for how many years now? And it seems like he just gets better. The big challenge the Bengals going to have in this one, no question about it, is we've seen them control him. 2 of 3 games these past 2 of the last 3 games the Bengals have played in Kansas City, they've actually held Kelce under 60 yards. It was the playoff game last season where they did it. Well, the big problem you're going to see and see how the Bengals control this is it's what they like to do with Travis Kelce is kind of hold him there, let him block a little bit, and he slides out late, finds some open area in the field, and wreaks all sorts of havoc. Expect to see a lot of that once again this week for the Kansas City Chiefs. Juju Smith-Schuster's been doing really well, quietly for the Chiefs, really. 933 receiving yards this season, but I tell you what, I don't know if I like that matchup if I'm Juju. I think he's going to see a lot of Mike Hilton in this game, and Mike Hilton, arguably one of the best nickel corners in the league right now, has just been playing out of this world. And we've seen it earlier this season. Juju held to 35 yards against the Bengals. I would say we see more of that, and it once again relies on Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce and company. I want to see the Chiefs run the football more. The first time these two teams matched up, the Bengals were struggling to slow down this Kansas City Chiefs run game. And as the game progressed, it felt like they got away from it a little bit. I mean, this is the story of both teams, though. You're going up against an elite quarterback, 2 of the greats in the league right now. If you can run that football and keep the football out of that opposing quarterback's hands, wear down their defense, that's a win. The Bengals come off, again, their best rushing performance we've seen, well, since they played the Kansas City Chiefs last. P. Ryan dropped over 100 on him last time they played. Mixon, 4.2 yards per carry. They had a really good run game, 4.2 yards. If you're not a Bengals fan, you're like, what's that? Well, it's been a struggle. It's a 4.2 yards solid game for the Bengals. But P. Ryan is averaging 5 a pop that game. Bengals are running over the Chiefs. Again, I thought we've seen that out of both teams, really. And if you can keep the football out of Mahomes' hands, or you keep that football out of Burrow's hands, wear down that opposing defense, I think that's where things change. The second half, whoever's defense sits on the field, the longest you wear them down, it becomes a struggle out there. And we're going to see that reflected, especially if you can wear and tear or wear down that opposing defense with that run game. I want to see the Bengals get Jamar Chase involved early and often in this one as well. Get this guy's confidence going. There's no question about it. The thought's still in the back of these guys' heads. 266 he dropped on the Chiefs last season. He dropped 97 this season on them. They were not letting any of that happen in the playoffs last season. Let's be perfectly frank there. They controlled him, contained him pretty well. But you get this guy involved early and they try to leave T open. They leave Tyler Boyd open. Hayden Hurst, who's been an absolute stud. I think that's a big dynamic playmaker that the Bengals did not have last season entering the playoffs in Hayden Hurst. And again, a lot of talk about the Bengals offensive line. Yeah. No. They're really, it's difficult to say and be so worried. I think that was in full focus on national television last week. It is hard to sit here and call the Bengals out of a football game because of their offensive line struggling, being injured. Their offensive line last week played tremendous. And their offensive line last week, even with 3 backups in, was better than their offensive line in the playoffs last season that took them to the Super Bowl. So I'm not even worried about the offensive line. Call it an overly confident, cocky confidence. There's a great chance this Kansas City defense gets home. But I'm not worried about the offensive line going to this game saying, oh, he's going to get sacked 8 or 9 times. I think, there's going to be some game-changing sacks, clearly possible. But it's not something that's, oh, there's no chance the Bengals win. That's just an Eric Waddle thing, I think. Where the Bengals have no chance to win because of their offensive line. You don't count this team out. I do think this is a game that comes down to the trenches, though. Which one of these teams can get the run game going early? They can stay committed to it. We all know these guys, or both these teams have quarterbacks that can move that football up and down the field. But if you can get a slow, methodical drive, kill some clock, especially early in the game, late in the game, get your defense rested, get the confidence going, get the momentum early, it changes the game. And when you watch the push, this Bengals offensive front, the Bengals defensive front got on that Buffalo Bills team last week. It is hard to imagine they don't walk into this game with that confidence, that momentum, and that victory in the trenches, at least from a run game perspective. We're not going to get overly confident here in the pass game. We're going to see what the Chiefs draw up. We know they're probably going to have to double Chase. We've seen that in the past. They're not going to have that extra. I just don't see the Chiefs playing the extra blitzer game. I think they have to get home with their 4, but they're more than capable of doing that. We'll see how the pass protection holds up. I think the run game, Bengals might very well have a very, very good run game, much like they did last week. We will see. I think this team's just too high. Buffalo or Kansas City, well, I don't know why we're thinking Buffalo. Kansas City has got to figure out a way to stop this team. They haven't 3 straight games. It feels like the Bengals have gotten better and better and better every single time they have played the Chiefs. I feel like this is a better football team right now than it was last year in the championship game. I don't think the Chiefs have changed as drastically as the Bengals. I have a hard time seeing them beat the Bengals this time around. I think the Bengals win this one in another thriller. We're going to say 31-34 Bengals. Love you guys' thoughts. Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you next time.